intake manifold out, like I am, there is a stud. In my case, this one was right here in the back, and on the back side where the EGR is held together, there's another stud that was left. The nuts came off. So now that we have those loose, I'm able to just slide this out. I'm still gonna have to work it out, but if you're having trouble, you don't have enough room. I was trying to break this wiring harness to where I could bow it up, but that's not gonna work. So now that I've got this, all the studs loose, I'm gonna try to get this out. Don't get impatient. If you do, you're gonna suffer. Things are gonna probably break for you. It's not real hard to get everything taken loose. It's not real easy, but you shouldn't have to fight it, tear stuff up. Okay? See that nasty mess? Just soot. I am getting a little oil in there. And drain your coolant on this project. You might want to have some cardboard, catch the splatters. And the only place I've found to do this, or easiest place for me, was right here. This little clamp that goes over that hose. And then I just pulled it back and it's draining. Just plugged up, set it up, valve out. We have to take this bolt loose and this one right here, 14 millimeter. Those were pretty stout for my 3/8 ratchet. All right, so there, that was a 14 millimeter right there on the back of the cooler. So we gotta get that. The cooler is ready to come out minus the coolant line. So I gotta disconnect that. Try to make a little room. I took the PCV tubing. It was a 10 millimeter. Took that loose, and the PCV that goes in the turbo mouth, I got that off. So that kind of moved that up, and I loosened the turbo mouth hose clamp and rolled that up. That's 8 millimeter. So I'm trying to get a little bit more room. It's pretty tight in here. Don't let anybody fool you that this is easy to do. It's just tight. There's a lot of stuff up here. Or I'm working on getting everything. It's been very difficult. So the alternator was 15 millimeter, 2 bolts, 15 millimeter. Use a 1/2 inch breaker bar to take the belt off. I just took my screwdriver and pried up on that return line. Expect to get some spillage. Okay. The EGR valve, it's pretty well blocked, but it's probably still functioning. I've got to remove this part, take that hose clamp off, put that back in place, and I got to get the hose off the firewall. Rotate the turbo mouthpiece back down in place. So that's where we're at. Now we're ready to put the intake tube on and all the associated components. And I'm fired up about it. But first I'm going to go take a break. Heater core tube in place, and I'm going to move the clamp back. I've got everything set basically where I want it, and I just use the factory clamps. They seem to be pretty superior. All this exhaust going into your intake is not doing anything. You can look at that. That's straight into the engine. So you know all the heads are full of soot. All the valves have soot on them. Probably not the best, in my opinion. I've got my heater core hose. This is an okay hose. I probably wouldn't recommend it. It's a cheap one. This is DK, I think is what it is. Performance Parts. I'm going to wipe this down as much as I can and then install this intake tube. I've got my alternator and belt back in, so I'm ready to go in with this. Tighten that heater core return. I didn't tighten that down yet because this intake has to go around it, in it, whatever. I mean, this is, look at that. That's on the intake. I kind of go over this DK intake pipe. It looks pretty good. The fitment around here is a little bit odd. I think I've got it sealed with that band clamp. This bracket, nowhere close. I don't know if you can kind of see how it looks. It's not great, but what I did is I took the bracket that was right here. It came up like right there, like right here, and that's about as close as it was, you know, like 1.5 inches. It could have came up an inch here, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches probably, or this piece could have came down actually. So I guess people, they just say it's for something and they get it close, and that's about all you get. So I guess, and then you have to do the rest. I took this bracket, turned it upside down, funny enough, and used the bolt hole that was up here. I put it down here, and then I was able to actually thread a bolt through here. I did flatten this out just a little bit to change the angle. And you can see the pressure that I've got that squeezed down pretty good, so it's solid, it's not going anywhere, and that's what I wanted. So it doesn't look pretty, but I think it's going to work, and hopefully it won't cause any problems. 16mm bolt here. It doesn't look too good, but it's going to work, I believe. Their bolt, yeah, same thing, 16mm. I used the original bolt, and it was off. It was off by about 1/2 inch. So I actually bent that bracket down in order for it to seat on the what is it, top of the manifold or whatnot, where it bolts. And then of course that little heater core tube, let's see, the heater core tube bracket right here, it was up here because, you know, the other EGR is like 1/2 inch or more, so it was sticking way up. I bent it down just a little bit, and then I spaced it with a couple of washers because the original bolt was kind of bottoming out. So a couple of tips and pointers there if you want to use that. Fitment, you know, it's not perfect. Hopefully, all I did was put the O-ring in there, and it looks like I got it seated pretty well, and I believe that a Y pickup, that Y up pipe, I think it's still in the proper place, and I didn't pull it out, and it's not going anywhere. It's fastened down, but you definitely want to make sure that these two brackets are secured. I saw one guy on YouTube, he said, "Oh, this is not aligning," and I didn't bolt it down. But then another video I saw where he was complaining about that up pipe pulled out. Well, if you don't put all the bolts in it, it's probably what's going to happen. So.